Have you ever thought about your marriage, that there must be more? More than the relationship that you're living in? Do you spend a good bit of your time feeling lonely, even while married? I'm Dr. Lene Hunt with the Marriage Recovery Center, and we're talking today about intimacy anorexia. That's the active withholding of emotional, spiritual, or sexual intimacy from a spouse or partner. And unfortunately, that's the experience in too many marriages. We live with a sense of starvation. It is much like you would talk about in physical anorexia, where there's a wasting away of the body for a variety of reasons. The most obvious is there's a lack of intake of food. In the case of intimacy anorexia, the lack of intake of food, so to speak, is because it's simply not available. You're living with a partner who, for whatever reason, has withdrawn their connection to you. It can happen along all three of those lines: spiritual, emotional, or sexual, or it could show up perhaps more in one than the others. But it's felt deeply because it cuts at the core of marriage. It cuts at the core of our expectations about marriage. If you ask most people what makes a marriage relationship different than all the other relationships in your life, they would probably point to the issue of intimacy. It's there in marriage that we expect to share most deeply of ourselves, to be most vulnerable, most transparent. It's there that we expect another to do the same. Sexual intimacy is a really good example of this because it's a metaphor for all the others. It's this tangible thing we can look at and sort of see how it's supposed to operate on all those planes. You've got two people who are together in the context of loving one another, in the context of this commitment they've made to one another that provides this foundation of safety. And out of that foundation of safety, out of the love that they feel for one another, there's this moment in sex where the two stand together and an invitation is made. They invite one another into themselves. And there is this physical coming together, this physical joining. In that moment, the two are one. They come together, they join themselves for one purpose, with one goal, out of one mind, one heart, one vision for this moment. This is an exchange not just of bodies, but it's an exchange of warmth and care and affection. It is the pouring out of yourself for another. It's the receiving of another life into your own. What's true physically in sexual intimacy is also true emotionally and spiritually in marriage, or at least it's supposed to be, right? We don't get married to feel lonely. We don't get married to hold ourselves back from another. And so everything in us craves that. Everything in us cries out for connection. It cries out for intimacy. And then somehow you find yourself married to someone who's unwilling to participate in that. They hold back their heart. They hold back their words. They hold back their affection, their thoughts. They just hold back. And slowly, over time, your own heart begins to atrophy and wither, and the relationship follows suit. It gets smaller and smaller and smaller, and less like a marriage. Perhaps more like roommates who live in the same house, which is not what you signed up for. I want so much for what I've just said not to describe you, not to describe your marriage, but I know that it will. for many of you. And so I want to say a couple of things to you. The first is that you're not crazy. If you're feeling that way, it's because it's probably really true. It's probably really happening. The second thing I want to say is that you're not wrong for wanting intimacy. You're not too needy. You're not asking too much. You're not expecting too much. Those are normal and right and good expectations, normal and right and good desires. And the third thing I want to say is that there's hope. Intimacy can be restored. If it was never there to begin with, it can be built. It obviously takes two people to do that, though. It's hard to build intimacy with another person all by yourself. But if you have a partner who might be willing to work on that with you, we at the Marriage Recovery Center would be more than happy to help you with that. So consider this your invitation to come see me. Give our client care team a call. You'll see the number appear at the bottom of the screen there. Give them a call. Tell them you want to come and talk about intimacy. And I'll be happy to meet with you and see what we can do about that. Thanks so much for joining today.